We should be good to start.
Okay, with that, let's go ahead and start this meeting.
Yep. Me?
Here.
Ryder?
Here.
Place?
Here.
Cochran?
Here.
And Davis? And Joan has indicated she'll be out today. Katie said she'll be here, but haven't seen her yet.
Okay. So, Kim, any business from the public? None at this time? All right. Let's move to the approval of the January 28th, 2025 minutes. We have motion to approve these minutes. All right, thank you. Have somebody second that motion? Second. All right, all those in favor of approving these minutes?
I don't know technically if I can, since I bowed out early.
You can.
Okay.
Yep, there we go. It's all in favor.
Awesome. Thank you. Scheduled business. Next is the election of the Human Relations Commission Chair and Vice Chair. How do I do this? Just anyone? Can I get a hello from anyone? Anyone want to self-nominate?
I nominate Allison to remain as chair.
Okay. Anyone else want to nominate anyone? I'm very happy to step down from that position, but if nobody else wants to do it, I'm also happy. It's very Libra of me. Any other nominations?
I'm happy to remain as vice. I'd like you to do that.
Should we start with the chair first? Okay. No other nominations for chair? Okay, do we have to vote if there are no other nominations?
I would say it's a good practice.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor of me remaining as chair, say aye.
Aye.
Right, anyone opposed? So, and nominations for vice chair. Any nominations for vice chair?
No, I'll-
All right.
Anyone else would like to do it.
Okay, all those in favor of Robin Davis as vice chair, say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, congratulations, Robin. With that, welcome, Kayla. We're excited to have you.
Good to be here. So I'm gonna get up and be moving around and everything. And I'm gonna actually start over here to give you guys a little bit of an overview. I know Kim sent out a couple of items about kind of why I'm here tonight, but I will get into that in just a minute. We are, as you can tell, going to be doing some activities tonight. So I just want to lay out a couple ground rules before we get into that. I guess I should start with, for those of you who I didn't introduce, I don't think I introduced myself when you came in. I'm Kayla, I'm the Deputy City Manager for the city, and in another life, I ran a Performance and Leadership Academy, did facilitations, strategic planning, work planning for a lot of different groups. So that is why I'm qualified to be here tonight. But before we get into the activities and the meat of tonight, wanted to lay down a few ground rules. First and foremost, ask that you be present throughout the session. And basically what I mean by that is, obviously we have things are happening, things that we might need to check, family, etc. If you've got to do that, if you've got to take a phone call or something, just please step out. That way everybody else can stay engaged in the activity. And the other thing is to please be respectful. I know sometimes when you do facilitations like this and some of the questions that we will ask tonight, and then also in the next meeting, could bring up some sensitive topics. So we just really ask that everybody be respectful, of different opinions and everything as we're going through here. That should probably be a good one for this group, that you guys should be pros with that. But let's talk about why I'm here tonight. Kim came to the city manager's office about a month or two ago, because this group, it sounds like this group wants to go to council, kind of get a little bit more of a clear vision of what it is that is the purpose, kind of mission, and really objectives of this group. Sounds like back in 2021, there was a really great job that was done kind of around refining what the vision looked like, but it sort of stopped there. And you guys have really been looking for a place of, where do we go? Where's the support going to come from council? If you have ever been to one of our council meetings, one of the things that you will find is things go a lot better and you get a lot better direction from council when you're actually able to bring to them something, a package of this is what we would like to do. Otherwise, you end up with all of them up there going back and forth, and it doesn't really come to a conclusion. Never happened to me before. So what we're going to do over tonight and the next month is we're going to check in on that vision that you guys went through in 2021, just to make sure that everybody's aware of it, because you have some new members since then. And then we're going to have you guys participate in some activities to help us understand what are the city of Albany's biggest pain points as they relate to that mission. That is going to then filter into an activity that allows you guys to start identifying possible solutions or activities that you guys would like to see in order to start moving and addressing some of those pain points. And then ultimately, we're going to have you guys evaluate, prioritize, and come up with a proposed work plan for this group to cover the next 2 years that you can take to council and say, here's what we see, here's the why, here's what we're trying to solve, here's what we would like to do for it. And that way they have something specific that they can give you feedback on, respond to, and really make that as successful as possible. Any questions on that before we get into activities? And then, sorry, if you came in as I was introducing, I'm Kayla. I'm the deputy city manager / your facilitator for tonight. Before you guys can have candy. Feel free to eat as much candy as you want. Kim also brought snacks. Feel free to eat those. And then there's also fidgets in front of you, because from years of doing this, I have found that some people just being able to fidget, do something, it gets the creative juices flowing, keeps them more engaged, and we want you guys to be as productive as possible tonight. So just don't take those ones home. Yeah, go for it.
If you write notes on the post-its or the note cards, is that something that has to be retained either for the rules or government retention?
All of the cards that end up on the board are going to get retained, and I'll turn it into a sheet for you guys.
Okay.
That'll get sent back out. Is your question more about like personal notes to yourself, or?
Yeah, because I know if you write on the agendas, they're supposed to be
I'll let
retained
you
for
answer
a
that
number
one.
of years.
Yeah, I would say that if you write on the agenda, we are gonna have to retain it,
Okay.
so just be aware of that.
But yeah, everything we do in the activities, I will capture it, put it into a nice sheet that comes back out to you guys so that you have that for reference, not only for the next meeting, but going forward as well. Okay. So with that, before we jump into our first activity, I wanted to touch a little bit on that purpose statement that was drafted back in 2021 for this group. Because I didn't know, of those of you who are new, how many of you had actually seen it. But I always think it's a really good idea to check in on that before we start kind of brainstorming what are the biggest pain points. Because this really helps to reorient us to why are we here. And so what I wanted to do here, I'm not going to read this verbatim, but I wanted the group to just help me identify what do you guys see as kind of key words in this purpose or mission statement here. And I'm going to write them on the board so we have those in mind before we go to the next activity. So what do you guys see that you think are kind of key words in here? Just, okay. Dignity, okay.
Safety.
Good. Hopefully you can actually see those. Like writing them.
Accessibility.
Accessibility, okay, good one. No judging on spelling either. Inclusion, okay, so accessibility, inclusion, anything else that you would say is kind of a key word in here?
The
I agree with all the other words, the term foster and just kind of what,
Okay, so like an action verb or
I was
action.
just wondering, yeah.
Yeah.
More so, it stands out as, you know, wanting to like understand what that verb means and stuff.
Okay, and that'll play really well in, especially when we get to the second set of activities around very specific action items. That's a good one to pull out. Anything else?
Think along those lines, strengthen.
Mhm.
And separate.
There. I'll get a lot of words out of that. There's one two sentences there.
Equal, just
Okay, yeah, fair point. Sorry, what did you say there about?
notice, just the word equal stands out in contrast to the word equitable. There's a. Yeah, okay. Stands out.
Okay. So the reason I've asked you guys to pull these out is because the next activity, the first activity that we're gonna do is going to be starting to lay out pain points faced by the city of Albany in relation to this mission statement. And so as we're going through that activity, because it's really easy when you start brainstorming to kind of go all the way out in left field and everything. So this is to help us kind of focus back in on, okay, what is that mission that was assigned out in 2021 through those conversations? And so we're looking for things, you know, pain points in relation to being just, you know, providing dignity, safety, etc. Does that sound okay? And I'll get more instructions on the activity in a minute, but I just want to make sure we're on the same page for that before I move the slide. Okay. I'm going to leave this up here because that slide won't be showing in a minute, and I want you guys to be able to work with that as we go. Okay. So the first activity that we're going to do here, and why we have all these lovely tape pieces on here, is something called a storyboard. Have any of you guys done a storyboard before? I'm seeing some heavy nodding. You've done a couple, Kim.
I know, I like them now.
So good. Okay, so we have at least one or two people who've done it before. So storyboarding is actually one of my favorite facilitation techniques. I call it my Swiss Army knife of facilitation because you can use it for so many different types of feedback. And it's also a really easy, fast one for people to learn. So essentially what a storyboard is, it's a visualization tool for ideas. What makes it really great is it appeals to both introverts and extroverts. Have you guys ever been in a meeting or on a team where you've got like that one or two people who just like give all the answers and you're sitting in the corner and you're like, I can't even talk? Again, seeing heavy nodding back here, you're like, I can relate to this. So the lovely thing about a storyboard is because it has you write out your responses and then they all get gathered and shuffled, that's the word I'm looking for. Everybody gets to participate in that way, and you don't have kind of one or two people dominating the conversation. And I'll talk a little bit about the instructions on it in a minute. What that does is it also helps to generate 3 times the responses of if we just kind of went around the table and threw something out. Because oftentimes when you have that you know, 1 or 2 people dominating the conversation, you might have people who agree with the idea, but because, let's say Sharon already said it, I'm not going to say it again. And you lose really key information when you don't hear that there's more than one person thinking about the same topic or same idea. So just a little bit about that before we get into it. But what we're going to do tonight is a storyboard of what are Albany's biggest pain points as they relate to the mission of the HRC. So what you're going to see in front of you are a couple things. First is you guys have index cards. So everybody's going to grab some index cards. You're also going to see black Sharpies. They're very purposefully the same color. That way, as you're writing, it helps to protect anonymity. So you are going to take as many cards as you need, and you're going to write down 1 response per card, not 1 word, but 1 response per card, as many cards as you need, answers to that question. What are the biggest pain points as they relate to that mission, which we just outlined over here, of the HRC? I'm then gonna go around as we're moving through and I'll just collect them as you're writing. You can keep on writing. It's kind of hard to shuffle these, so if I do in small batches, it's easier. And then once I have all of those, I'll gather them all together and we'll move over to this board for the second part of the activity. So this first part, you're doing individually. Second part, we will be doing as a group. Any questions? You're all like, what? It's okay. Feel free if you have questions to stop and ask me. Normally I would play music during this time, but because it's on a Zoom call, will not be doing that. If it's helpful to you, the next piece of this after the storyboarding tonight is going to be starting to brainstorm very specific actions that we can take over the next 2 years to respond to those pain points. About not just how the mission is written, but also how you execute that mission. Impacting safety, what's impacting dignity, etc.
When we trade it out, I'll take a picture.
Water or a snack while I'm waiting for a last couple of people. Feel free to do so. What we're gonna do now is actually the group portion of this activity. And, some of you, as we're going through this, if you feel like you need to get up and get a little bit closer, feel free to do so. It's a little bit harder with the way that this room is laid out, for everybody to see. But essentially what we're gonna be doing now is I'm gonna read off these cards one by one. First card I'm gonna read off, and I'm gonna put it right here on this first category. I'm then gonna read off the second card, and I'm gonna ask you guys, is this the same or is this a different theme? If it is the same theme, we'll put it on the same row. If not, we'll move to the next one, and we will do that so on and so forth until all of the cards are on the board. What this is going to allow us to do is start to visualize, categorize, see where there are similar themes, similar ideas, and also allow us to talk through what some of those ideas and themes are. Key piece here, as we're going through this, you do not need to say that it was your card. I will not ask you if it was your card. If you want to volunteer that information, that is totally up to you. But if at any point we have differing opinions about what the card means or what the intent was, we can work that out as a group. If you have an idea as we're going through this, because sometimes that happens, feel free to just go write it down on a new card. Let me know and I'll shuffle it into the deck. That way it can go up here, because sometimes it's a little bit hard to think about the answer to the question while you're on the spot there. So any questions about that before I move into this? They're so tentative. Okay, so the very first one on here is unclear direction. Unclear direction. So go ahead and put that on here. Next one, demonization of diversity and inclusion practices. Demonization of diversity and inclusion practices. Do you guys feel like that's a similar theme or a new category entirely? New category. Everyone feel pretty good. They kind of understand what this one's talking about. Okay. Presentations to council from community groups around specific holidays, for example, MLK. Presentations to council from community groups around specific holidays, for example, MLK. Is that the same as one of our first two categories, or is that different? You're indifferent? Okay. Okay. And as we get more of these on the board, we'll start to name some of these categories because it'll get a little bit harder for you guys to remember where things are sitting. Okay. Unknown safety, dignity, accessibility status of Albany citizens. Unknown safety, dignity, accessibility status of Albany citizens. That's similar or different? Do you guys understand what's meant by that one?
So it goes with the unclear.
Okay, so you're saying it goes,
Seems ambiguous, like that's an ambiguous section.
okay. Do you guys agree with that? Unknown safety, dignity, accessibility status of Albany citizens. You guys think that goes with unclear direction? Or the, we have the demonization of diversity inclusion practices and presentations to council and community groups, or a new category altogether?
Yeah, can I just ask, so if we get to the point of hitting all 6 of these and we decide we need to shuffle some things to different.
So one, we can add more categories if we need to. 2, once we get everything on the board, it is your board. So we will go through an exercise where if you guys want to move anything around, you absolutely can. I'm not here to control the board. So yeah, so we have one person saying unclear direction, would be where they would put unknown safety, dignity, accessibility, status of Albany citizens. Feel pretty good on that one? Okay. Yeah. This is why I asked, because I totally interpreted that differently.
I mean, for now, like, I think it could end up in somewhere else, but.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, this is why I go out to the group, because like when I read that, I thought you guys were talking about like not having data about the state. That's cool.
I'll just say that was mine, and it is about a lack of data, but it's also just something that's an unknown right now,
Okay.
depending on how we want to categorize it.
Clarity.
Oh, right. It's not, yeah, it's.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm glad I said that out loud then. Okay. Limited participation, outreach to minority communities. Limited participation / outreach to minority communities. So we kind of have this like unclear, unknown one here, demonization, diversity, presentations to council for community groups. New category?
Yeah.
Turnover in commission. Turnover in commission. Same or different?
Awesome. First. The first one, because that's kind of the ambiguous stuff.
It is, I also wonder if it's a lack of, like, not, like a lack of community, which is also limited participation. So I don't know.
So bring a little bit of the unclear, a little bit of the
I
limited
could go with limited.
participation. Does that feel pretty good? We can always move it later if we need to. No budget for initiatives. No budget for initiatives.
Any new category?
You could, I mean, that's plan of resource stuff.
We can absolutely do that. And then if you want to pull it in later on, you can, or go for it. Okay. I think it might be a good option to do that. No budget for activities. There you go. Jump that one well there, didn't I?
There we go.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna say, Justin, that's going here?
Yeah.
Okay. You never know. Visibly stated missions of DEI or subset of that within city departments. Visibly stated missions of DEI or subset of that within city departments. And action or lateral? What's your thing? Visibly stated missions of DEI or subset of that within city departments.
My first thought was humanization, and that it's just the issue is. So it's either not support for it's not or matching or is what I would assume, but
That's my first thought too. We're gonna go.
Anybody have any issues with putting it under that one, or feel pretty good? Oh, I can't read this one, don't judge me. We can't be everything for everyone. how to average the most good. We can't be everything for everyone. How to average the most good. I'm hearing one for resources. We've also got the unclear direction, unknown safety, et cetera, demonization of DEI, presentations to council, and limited participation turnover. You'll find that this will align looking a lot like a conspiracy theory board. You just pull out the string and just tie them all together. That's totally okay. And where's it most fit for you guys?
Your direction. And you don't know how to allocate your time and effort. Do you know what your like direction is?
Okay. Is that,
Yeah. Kayla, could you read it one more time?
absolutely. We can't be everything for everyone. How to average the most good.
I think that makes sense, because I think I find it unclear, because I think if there was more clarity, then it might be, it will do lots of good, but we know we're gonna do this good.
Or if everybody on the exact same definitions. The whole world agreed that this was how it was working.
Wouldn't that be amazing? Okay. So we put it here, we've got 3 cards in here. So every time we get to 3 cards, we're gonna go ahead and name the category themes. So that's just gonna help us as we move through here and get a lot of cards on the board. So let me reread these real quick and then have you guys think of what you want to call this. So we have unclear direction, unknown safety, dignity, accessibility status of Albany citizens, and then we can't be everything for everyone, how to average the most good. What do we think the theme of that category should be? A couple clarities over here. Ambiguity.
Lack of clarity or lack of.
I feel like I'm hearing a lack of clarity. So we're gonna go ahead and call this one lack of clarity. That way we can easier reference that category before. So while she's writing that, I'll read the next one. Albany appears to be divided. Good old days versus growth. Small, rural versus city with city problems. Oh, you got that? Thank you. Albany appears to be divided. Good old days versus growth. Small, rural versus city with city problems.
Feels like a new category.
New category?
Yep.
I'm hearing that one pretty strongly there. Chance to go up a little more, just in case. It's not gonna redo it then, okay. No significant financial resources for HRC support.
Dummy, all right.
Stop. And this is the best, it's fine. I'm gonna really throw her off, because now we're ready to name another category. What do we want to call this one that has the no budget for initiatives, no budget for activities, no significant financial resources for HRC support?
Lack of resources.
Lack of resources? Okay, all right.
Maybe financial reasons.
Yeah, resources.
Yeah.
And we can always take that out later if we find out there's other resources like on a couple or.
What's another?
Oh, okay.
You gotta review yourself.
Yeah. Can't go up.
Infrequent interaction stimmies action. Infrequent interaction stimmies action. I'm gonna totally have to ask, what do you guys think?
Stymies.
Stymies, sorry. Sometimes this is over there. Infrequent interaction stymies action.
I'd go with the turnover and commission. Say,
Okay. I will say I've been saying this word wrong my entire life. Okay. So now, what do we get to do now? Get to name it. Limited participation / outreach to minority communities, turnover and commission, infrequent interaction stymies action. What do we want to call that one?
Sources, as opposed to focus, but,
Five commitments.
Happening on maybe?
Let's see.
Yeah.
Capacity. I've been talking about capacity all day, and that's like a fresh word in my mind right now, so. Okay. Designating appropriate times for the committee.
There you go.
Going under that crafty one. Finding our purpose.
That's-
Okay. Unclear goals versus tangible of the HRC.
Sorry, tangible, unclear tangible.
Oh, unclear tangible goals of HRC. I'm thinking, yeah. Sort of lack of clarity. Lack of interest / support for DEI initiatives from community.
Demonization.
Okay, now, pretty strongly about. What do we want to call this one? Then we've got that demonization of diversity and inclusion practices, physically stated mission of DEI or subset of that within city departments, lack of interest.
Or, no. Ideologies?
Yeah, I like that, I like that.
We're going for our dollar words tonight.
Mm-hmm.
People don't know the HRC exists. People don't know the HRC exists.
Gosh, that feels like a couple, that feels like capacity, lack of resource, financial resources, clarity.
I almost think we wanna put it in a new spot just in case. I think that feels. Maybe not wrong.
So, you want to do that? Okay. See, now you can purchase. Lack of public awareness of HRC. People don't know who to contact in case they experience or witness a bias crime / incident. Is that what we're naming that category? Like, we don't have a party, that specifically just says that, but yeah, okay. Historically erratic attendance at committee meetings.
Capacity.
Capacity.
Okay. Provide funding to HRC to foster, strengthen, and celebrate. Can't say or use DEI in current government work. Yeah, this is a hard one because if we talk about it, we lose. We can't like have any grant funding anymore, which is a really hard place to be in.
Well, I mean, that'll be a lawsuit.
Oh, yeah, it will, but it is, yeah, one of those that is within the power of the administration to change. So, unfortunately. Lack of LGBTQIA safe spaces. Lack of LGBTQIA safe spaces. Ideologies as well, or?
I work in Albany, appears to be divided.
Yeah, I forgot about that category.
Albany appears to be divided, good old days, versus growth, small, rural versus city with city problems.
Oh,
I feel like that's a financial resource. I mean, if there's a lack of space,
Well,
if it's small.
I think it's across multiple.
Yeah.
And there's no right or wrong answer to this. This is just to help us from a thinking. Lack of LGBTQIA safe spaces.
Is that, I guess, one of the questions would be, is that within HRC and its mission, like there's, like, that is not supported, like talking about that and pursuing it is not supported, or do we mean there's physically not any space in Albany and that is something that needs to be?
What's the group think?
I would think it's the first, it might be ideologies. If it's the second, it might be more along the lines of what's actually happening in Albany, which would be.
I see it on the second, and I do think that this is a place where, you know, as I was reading that, what are Albany's biggest pain points, like, thinking. I definitely wrote about what HRC's biggest pain points were, but like, that is one that I'm like, that's the city of Albany.
Yeah, and that's one right, because because of the second part of this activity, we're gonna get into specific actions to respond to it. Really good to make sure you put yourself in the mindset both of HRC and the city of Albany, because ultimately, at the end of the day, that mission was to provide, foster, strengthen, and celebrate just dignity, safe, city of Albany. So keep that in mind as we're going through. Because I am noticing a lot of these are leaning towards the mission statement specifically, as opposed to kind of how that plays out in the actual community. So just kind of think about that as we're going through. But lack of LGBTQIA safe spaces.
The division of all. But I think that whole category, I mean, on the third one, yeah, I think that whole category. Big number of ideologies.
So,
Yeah.
It's really, that's where the divide comes from.
Well, we can hold for a little bit and then move it in to, lack of POC/marginalized voices, lack of POC/marginalized voices.
Well, I think it could go with the proclamation and the presentation. When I come to council, when I show up in this space, it looks like this. I mean, we have a black mayor, we have a black council member, but we have a very large Latino community. I'm on planning commission too. I don't see, yeah, I think it's an outreach and an invitation and a relationship development.
You're really thinking this was focused at like lack of them being kind of at the table, participating in sort of the government decision-making process. So do you guys agree with that presentation to council group, or things light nodding, some skepticism over here?
I'm only struggling because I think I still don't understand exactly what the presentation to council from, like, what about that is the pain point? Like, is it that those aren't happening, or that they aren't supported, or that?
What do you think? Oh,
So, person who's staff, but I kind of see it as like, in the past, we've talked about like how council doesn't see like presentations or other voices, like, active at the dais providing presentations. So to me, that seems like a program that could be helpful if the HRC did it, you know what I mean? Like, that would be an action. So that's how I read it. So.
I don't know if you agree with this.
The proclamation, it was more of an action. I know that the mayor doesn't sign proclamations, and so it's an opportunity for council, for HRC, whoever wants to acknowledge groups. And so it just falls under that lack of other voices being brought to the table more attention.
You say the mayor doesn't sign proclamations, but the council does approve proclamations.
No, the mayoral proclamations, right? Since it's the mayor.
We haven't had one since I've been here, so I'm looking at you, Kim.
So they used to, I don't know the full reasons why, but, the mayor has decided he's not going to do proclamations anymore.
There was a really big issue in Lebanon when we wanted so I was a part of that. We were trying to get council to sign the flag proclamation, and they wouldn't do it. And so we took it to the Lynn County Commissioners and they signed it, and it became very
I do
political.
remember that.
Yeah, so I think that's maybe when,
And Alex had decided not to. That was also the same time of, 1 year we flew the pride flag, and then after that, it opened up a lot of requests from a variety of other groups. And it's hard to say yes to one and no to others. And so the thought on council was, we are here to make sure the water continues to run. We are here to make sure toilets flush. We are trying not to be a political in that capacity organization, but we are here to do the basic functions of a city. And that isn't necessarily the 7 people on the dais are willing into what sort of politics are.
That being said, if it is a pain point, I don't know that card there fully captures that because that sounds like a very specific pain point of not being able to take proclamations or get proclamations out of council. So how would you guys feel about actually writing out a card so that we can capture that very specific?
I would love to.
Okay, let me go ahead and Because I don't want to lose that in all of this discussion.
Okay, so that goes under,
Is that going under, presentations one then? Okay.
Okay, so
So then, lack of, POC / marginalized voices. Sounds like at the table.
for me, reasons that would go under public awareness in the sense that the
let's give you public.
If this population is being underserved, or we not advertising to them saying, hey, we need this. But we're obviously not saying things in a language that's being heard by that particular.
or but also it could be an issue of the idea that the weight will, it could be capacity, I think it could also be, if we're looking at the idea of the presentations and proclamations being that essentially the structure of the structure and the environment that the city government is creating is not supporting the mission. That could also be that, because the environment is not being created that allows for those voices to be here. I don't.
So we can pick one, and then we can always move it later. The other thing is, like I said, it's a conspiracy board at the end of the day with all the red lines tying to each other. That's why all of these are kind of falling under one commission, is because they should be related ideas. So ultimately, at the end of the day, even if we put it under one category, if it applies in other areas, that doesn't mean you can't brainstorm solutions in relation to that one. And that's one of the ones that we kind of move forward to the next activity. So is there, sounded like public awareness I heard the most. Is there anybody who couldn't live with it being in public awareness for now? That's my favorite go-to when there's not a consensus. Council change every 2 years equals different opinions / values. Council change every 2 years equals different opinions / values. The ideologies over here. Anybody else? Ian's nodding. Don't need that second, third piece of candy at this point. Feel that quieter. Okay, we'll go ahead and put it here. I mean, if you're gonna make it. So much pressure. Speaking of pressure against HRC ideologies from public / fed.
Ideologies.
Okay. Strong divide amongst Albany citizens. Strong divide amongst Albany citizens.
Yeah, that's
the last one.
Here we go.
So here are the Albany appears to be divided.
Yeah.
Okay. We have 3 here. What do we want to call this one?
Division. Oh. Community division.
Cultural division.
Cultural division it is. Definition of terms. Definition of terms. And I'm assuming, just someone throw this up here to make sure I understand it. I'm assuming we're talking about these terms over here on the board. Okay. City has training, but no central 12ED equity focused staff. City has training, but no central 12ED equity focused staff.
Financial resources. So now.
No, I was gonna say, let's talk about the staff member, what?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna be the lack of financial resource staffing, for sure. But I told you guys I was talking about the capacity on this, it's the same question. Including equitable opportunity versus equal opportunity. Including equitable opportunity versus equal opportunity.
Yeah, it's going very well.
Also be a lack of clarity with that question, but I think.
A very unclear relationship with council, a very unclear relationship with council. Lack of marketing and outreach.
Public awareness.
Public awareness. Signing of proclamations to recognize groups. Can I put it in this one? Okay, what do we want to call that one?
That like a lack of council support, or is it?
Good council, council engagement. You know, so, I mean, it's really what it is. I mean, if you're gonna say, you know, if you say our sole mission is to keep the lights and the water and the garbage collected, then you're abdicating your base responsibility of the basis of democracy, which is local government exists as well. I mean,
Let's just say maybe I represented that wrong. I don't want you guys to lose. It's on TV. It's just,
I'm gonna get blasted.
no, like, you know, it's, this body is elected as, it's a nonpartisan. You don't put an RRID behind your name when you run for the ballot. We're supposed to serve all members of the community. And so depending on the makeup of the people in the room, depending on the makeup of the people on the dais, like that.
It's each group figures out what are the 5 things that they're gonna work on for their term, and that's what they focus on. And it may be these 5 things that are, and the next year you get different people and different directions. So it's not necessarily that that things are not important, or that somebody doesn't like one thing or the other. It's that there's a limited amount of time. What's our focus? Okay, we're focusing right now.
I do not want you to lose faith in democracy based on.
and I don't want to disparage
No.
I don't want to disparage your work or your, but I'm just saying.
I just don't, I feel bad if that's what I said, so.
Okay, so mistrust of government is the next one here.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, did we not actually come up with?
Oh, sorry.
I think it was council engagement was
Okay.
over here.
Council engagement with the process of community. Council engagement, I don't know.
Council and community,
engagement.
Council interaction.
council stuff.
Council stuff.
Better.
Question mark.
Yeah.
There you go.
I think it's council inclusion. I think, you know, it's really, really important on that. Including communities that are not so comfortable.
You guys like that one?
Council inclusion, yeah.
I was just like, anybody who's not able to live with that one. Okay. And then we have mistrust of government, mistrust of government.
Anybody else?
Ideologies.
Cultural division.
Yeah, you're one of those.
I'm hearing mostly cultural division seems to nodding over there. Okay, we'll put it over here. Lack of key data to focus our efforts. Lack of key data to focus our efforts. Okay. You guys had that other data one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually put them close to each other just to make it easier for the. Limited scope of charter, limited scope of charter. Reactionary slash elements, or sorry. Back that up. Reactionary elements push back on core mission. Reactionary elements push back on core mission. I'm gonna need you guys to clarify what you guys think by this one, because I'm not sure I understand. I don't.
That's what I was thinking about.
Okay, so like reacting to how ideologies are changing. Reactionary elements push back on core mission.
Yeah.
Unclear definitions of major points of mission. Unclear definitions of major points of mission. Not all community. Not all community members have the same commitment. Not all community members have the same commitment.
Community members or commission members?
The community. I could read that one.
Say.
Hearing cultural division, I'm hearing capacity.
Cultural division.
Cultural division sounds pretty strong. Vocal racism. local racism.
Cultural tradition.
Develop programs to help diversify clinicians. Develop programs to help diversify clinicians. Councilman Lang. Sorry, I heard it. You said it very loudly and then I was really, and I only heard one voice, so let me. Okay, how to calibrate results. How to calibrate results. You guys feel like you understand what that means? Okay.
Or no, we're doing more. We'll do more, yeah.
Okay. Oh, how do you measure success?
Yeah.
Measure success. Okay, otherwise, that's helpful. Okay, so next piece here. Before I have you guys go through and we're gonna do a dotting activity next, help us start to prioritize, because there's a lot of stuff up here. But as you guys have noted, capacity is a pain point. So it's perfectly okay if you can't get to everything all at once. And the dotting activity we're gonna get into next is gonna help us prioritize which items we then start to brainstorm actual actionable solutions for. But before I do that, one, is there anything on here that you guys feel like needs to be moved around? You feel like you can't live with where it's at on the board? And two, now that you've kind of seen a little bit more of it, is there anything that is key that we are missing off of this that you want to make sure gets included up? You guys are welcome to for it too, it's okay.
Should cultural, division and ideologies be the same? Isn't that what causes cultural division?
Yeah, I think it's better to have them together.
You guys want to pull those ones together? Okay. That real well. Anything else that you can't live with?
Think about capacity and, the lack of financial resources that, or well, particularly with capacity, that there's I mean, honestly, it's not so much capacity as, it makes me think of much more about like the actual commitment to this, to the mission by HRC members. It's limited participation. Well, I guess the outreach to minority communities, that might actually fall under public awareness, because the other ones are, there's not enough interaction, there's much turnover. People are not, designating appropriate time for the committee and historically erratic attendance, which is all speaking to member behaviors, but the limited participation and outreach to minority communities feels a little bit more like a public awareness issue.
So do you guys
So,
feel like you want to move this one over to the public awareness, that limited participation outreach? Or do you want to leave it as is?
or maybe that's, I don't know, there's something that feels different about the actual.
And again, this is if you can't live with it. If you guys can live with it, the next activity, this is just to help you organize. Yeah, because you can move this board all day. That's part of it being Brucey board, right? Is everything's connected. So, I probably should stop running it that way. That's sorry. I'm meaning it in the interconnectedness way.
City government.
I know. It's not helping with that trust in government.
Yeah, I mean, we did see the lack of marketing and outreach. I live with it, but
I agree with you, probably. It should go for the.
I heard mixed thoughts on that one. So if you guys can live with it, we'll leave it as is. Okay. Anything key that is missing from here that we need to make sure that's on here? Okay. Next piece of this, what you guys are gonna now do, you're gonna see blue dots in front of you. Yay. You guys each get 3 blue dots for yourself. You are gonna come up here to the board and you are gonna put your blue dots on the items, the pain points that you think are most important for us to try solving as it relates to, you know, your mission, City of Albany. I apologize, I don't have it memorized verbatim, but as it relates to these key areas of your mission, you're going to do that individually. So you each get 3 dots. You can put each dot on a different card. If you think one in particular is super, super important, you can put all three dots on one, you can put two on one. Just make sure they go on these black cards and not the theme cards. Because what we're gonna do is, this is gonna help us start to narrow down what items we might start brainstorming on for actual actions. Does that make sense? Okay, so grab three dots apiece, come on up here and get them on board. And we'll debrief after that. Time for another act, but the good news is that must mean you guys feel pretty strongly and have some pretty clear priorities. Okay, so let me just take a minute to look at this for a moment. Health insurance. So you're actually moving towards that next step, but that could be an action item, right, of like, how do we, the action item could be defining how we talk about it when we can't use DEI, that would absolutely be that. I came from a community that was really conservative before I was here, and we were absolutely not able to use the term DEI, so I lived with that for years. So that is a very real, but we figured out ways to talk about it. So yeah, so that could be one. What are you guys feeling as far as the number two? You guys don't have a real clear one here.
From the lack of clarity.
Well, I think your problem is here, some of these are, I think are actually gonna get answered from your actual brainstorming. The goal piece, we'll be able to lay it out through a work plan. Same thing for being able to ask for resources that come from a work plans. I think that's a little bit of where it's getting difficult for you.
So Kayla, what I'm hearing you kind of, in this reframe, I'm hearing you say like, we should be looking at like actionable things right now, right?
Yeah, the next piece of it is gonna be looking at actionable items to do on an impact effort matrix. These are ultimately gonna be things that are gonna lead into, here are the specific things that this mission will accomplish over the next 2 years. Council, do you agree with this recommendation we're making of what we're gonna achieve? And so that's, I'm throwing that out because when you get too squishy of a subject, or you get something that's not fully in your control like this one, because of how the process works, it can become hard for people to be able to brainstorm. What you end up with on the impact effort matrix is more people going, get more budget, which is a hard one, right? That's not but we absolutely could do it if that's what y'all want to do.
Would it be okay to not do anything until we do the first one that we want to do?
Yeah. We could
Only, I only think because we really don't have any control over like the DEI aspect. And thinking about ideologies. In the mission, it's very clear what the ideology of the HRC is. And we don't have any control over, well, I guess I don't know, at least as far as the city goes, what guidance or expectations have been put out on wording phrases that can and can't be used or shouldn't be used based on things. And so unless we have that, we don't really know what we can or need to do around language and ideologies. Is that,
I mean, yeah,
I'm also open to hearing.
we could do the first one and then see. I think Heidi also had a really great way of approaching it, is how do you talk about it without, that could be a way to brainstorm on that. I will tell you the language that we've received is also very unclear. We have been specifically surprised. And this might be helpful context for you guys. The direction or the stuff that's come down from our federal funding agencies has basically said, pull anything from your grant programs or programs that reference DEI specifically.
Okay.
That the administration is not gonna support funding for programs that mention that.
Like those words in that order.
Diversity.
All
Yeah,
together.
I mean, that's what it says.
Specifically, so like using the word equity.
That's what it says.
Is okay.
That being said, we keep getting new executive orders every
This is
Okay.
so,
day.
this is so
Hour?
illegal.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so incredibly illegal. I mean,
So just throwing that out there, like that's the best direction we've received, and it's not really a great direction. But I think Heidi's got a really great, she's already starting to think through where you might address some of that, so that there could be things within the control that you guys could help with, where maybe it's.
Would an action item or thing that we would consider for that is get direct guidance from the city, the council, whoever it might be from, about the HRC and the use of language, because is there federal funding that it all impacts?
No, you guys don't have any federal funding committee, you guys, I think.
So.
But if
we have
we,
to
if we
change
are
it
looking to request.
DEI.
I was thinking about some of the ones that you have listed under here. I think there was one about
I
like
guess,
visibly putting it in the,
oh, the
Yeah.
visible.
I was thinking about it in the context, so those are some of the things that you might want to be aware of. I think that's probably what
Yeah.
drove that card there. But that being said, I mean, you guys have, if you remember back here, your keywords: recommend, promote, advertise, address, ensure. You could recommend, okay, here's how we talk about this. That would be within your action words of your duties. So just trying to like give you guys some prompts to think about. We can absolutely plan for the public awareness, lack of POC/marginalized voices, and then let you guys kind of percolate a little bit on what you want your second one to be. That's totally fine.
Well, I think the lack of POC marginalized voice is a good way to start. Influence this other one too, so.
You guys want to do that? I'll type in all of this and send it back out to the group so you can ruminate on that before the next meeting if you want to, or go for it.
Can we take a minute to kind of give parameters around that, because lack of POC marginalized voices is pervasive. Are we talking about within the HRC, within our city government? How are we talking about it? Because I'm 100% there, but this comes back to that lack of direction. So I think we do need to define what we're referring to when we're talking about that. Is it about city government? Is it about this commission?
Yeah, well, and I think it's a good place to start out to go, what do we have the most direct control over? If we are here, we're part of this group, and we go, okay, we'd like to have more people that are representing what the city is. One of the most direct things we can do is start advertising and talking to our friends, relatives, neighbors, blah, blah, blah. Hey, I would love you to consider being a part of this, so that we have a pipeline of people when we need new commissioners. Hey, here's your list of the 7 people that we've talked to previously that we've advertised to. That's something we can immediately do. We can't immediately say, hey, city council, you need to have 3 more people that represent these communities. We can't directly make that happen.
And from a staff perspective, like, we have the resources that we have currently in staff, volunteers, part-time staff. People probably don't want to work someplace where they don't see themselves reflected. And so like, how do we invite more people to participate in addition to just council and activities that take place in this chamber, but how do we get additional folks across the district as an employee working in our volunteer pool, seasonal staff working at our places that are future, public servants. So I like, that would be something that I would think also would be really helpful, as opposed to the twice a month council activities and who's here. I mean, that's very important, but like, how do we also start to become friendlier and a more attractive place for folks to want to live?
So I'm just gonna throw this out real quick. I'll get to you in 1 second here. So the one thing I would caution you again is closing the parameters down too quickly. So what you're getting at there, with what is in our control versus not in our control, some of that will come out through the impact effort matrix. Because as you're starting to talk about whether something is going to be high effort, immediately, if something is not in your control, if you're gonna have to get other groups on board who may not necessarily be on board, I would say that's gonna move that into that high effort, either in the revisit later or the major projects. But it's important to have some of those in there, because you may, if we sit here and say we're excluding it now, because
Yeah.
then you don't get to even talk about it or bring it up. Ultimately, when you guys go in front of council, you'll be able to present, this is our recommended, keyword, they're recommended. Because you guys are here because you are seen as the experts on this area. This is our recommended plan, and that gives something for council to respond to. And they may come back and say, this one here is, we love these ones here, please go forward with these. Tweak this one here, or we don't like this one here, but it gives them something to respond to, as you guys being that group that they put together to advise them on that. Does that make sense?
Sure.
Okay, so I think what I'm hearing, because we've got about 10 minutes left, I think where we fall into is we'll start with that one. We'll do the impact effort matrix on that one first thing next time. And then I will send everything out to you guys and let you guys percolate a little bit on what the second one is. And we may do that very first one and you guys get so many ideas out of it. We may just say, you know what, we don't need to do a second one. Because as you guys pointed out, it might impact a lot of your other ones on here. And from that, we'll start to put together that draft plan for you guys, and let you guys start to piece that together. Does that work for everyone? Do you guys feel like you had to do a lot of thinking tonight? Hopefully it was good thinking, good fun. And I feel like we got a lot of really good feedback from you guys. What are your guys' thoughts on tonight and how it went?
I was gonna ask, the next month's meeting, are we planning for another hour and a half as well to do?
Same.
I think,
It just works better in person for.
oh yeah, no, I'm very, very pleased with that. I just, wanted to make sure that, because, you lose that steam if you don't get to like.
And I know we had chatted about like, Caleb with us at the next meeting, and then theoretically in April sometime, we would have the work plan. And I imagine it would be Allison and Robin who would be there sharing the work plan and making the recommendations to council. We can kind of get a feel for how we're coming out of next month's meeting to figure out if April is the time to do that, or if you guys want to, if you've been assigned a project that you're taking ownership of, if you need a little bit more time to like flesh it out before we go to council. But my hope would be that by at least the end of May, we would definitely have time on a work session for you all to be able to say, here's what we think we should do. Please give us some marching orders.
And Kim, that's a really good point. I would rather you guys get to something you feel good about and feel like this is something we can work with and it gives us, that purpose moving forward, than have us rush to the finish line and then you kind of get stuck back in the same place that you've been.
Because this has been a long time coming with all of the waiting,
Yeah, I like that.
change, all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Kayla, can you, and maybe you already said you were gonna do this, get back to us on language that we can and cannot use?
I just gave you the only information we've gotten is, from our funding agencies, is you cannot incorporate DEI language or programming or policies into your programs if they're being funded federally.
So
Did they
we
give you
Literally,
the
that's
terms?
literally what we were.
can still use DEI then right now until we're still ready. I mean, I struggle with going back to everyone because I've done equity work for 30 years.
Yeah.
And it's like, if we can still maintain that language, and so we absolutely can't, I personally would struggle with not being able to do that. Unless council said, okay, then you don't get any fun, or whatever that conversation might be, just me personally.
And that's not coming from council, that's our federal.
Right,
So we get
right,
about, for reference, we get like $10.2 million from federal funding. It runs basically our entire transit program. It funds
Community development.
CDBG. You guys might have seen one that they put something out about, for our CDBG people, you can still apply for it, but we're not gonna be able to guarantee because we don't have guarantees coming down from the feds, but,
Did they give you a list of terms?
No.
Just-
It is
just-
very broad.
Yeah,
DE.
It is just DEI, that is literally, yeah.
and DEI programming, so I just fear like this whole, if it's gonna be that broad, the lack of POC, that alone is, I mean, if funding's gonna be shut down, it's gonna be shut down for that regardless of what we call it. So for us anyway, so if we can continue to use language that represents really more the work that we're doing, like DEI.
So if we don't get any funding, they can't stop us from using our first-
Right, but they can say no
Right.
funding for the city because we have.
Oh, because somebody in a city building uses their freedom of speech to say,
Employed by the city. She's involved in something, but has that.
So I think just to clarify, from years and years and years of doing grants, I have like 10 years of grant experience. I think where it's the language that is coming down is maybe, I don't know if harsh is the right word. It's more of an abrupt turn than what you see normally from administration to administration. But the pressing down of new priorities and language that you should include within your funding is not a new thing. So for example, over the last 4 years, for funding, we've been told, talk extensively about things that have to do with climate change, sustainability, how are you, addressing energy. And so we would put all of that in, and we're gonna talk about, like, oh, our buses do this or that in order to get that funding. That's another one now that they're saying if we don't include that, but what they are saying is, talk more about economic, or we talk about, how it sets you up for growth or strengthening or using your resources better. So there's other ways that you can talk about stuff, even if you couldn't use specifically that language. And I apologize if there's no further clarity. I don't have the feds, unfortunately, and speed dial may have not been very clear in all their executive orders coming down, but that's one that,
My current understanding, is that the federal funding that any particular organization, government receives, it's only the things that are directly impacted with that funding. Is that right? That could be denied. So like, if our HRC does not receive any money from the federal government, says DEI 8 million times.
yeah, I mean, so
The federal government isn't going to say, we're not funding, we're not providing this. It's specifically the programs that are funded by that federal money.
yeah, and I think that was
Can't use
where,
that language.
that was the clarity coming in for you guys as a part about
Yes.
the visibly stated in the missions. That's one that's a little bit.
Yes, okay.
If but
That's what-
talking
yeah.
about it in other terms or other ways.
Yeah, I was just thinking, so like on the, I'm on the public safety commission, and the chief, hard. Can't remember.
If you guys already had it,
In her,
about that, actually.
it was talking about the
Yeah.
only federal funding that they're receiving right now is through the harm reduction, but it's through something else, and so the department doesn't actually have to change anything about the language that they have, because it's just that one program that's actually for both Idaho and Oregon, and so anything, it doesn't, right? Is
Yeah,
that-
so the way that one's working.
Something
is
like
It's a pass through, and
Yeah,
so
yes, whatever that.
the entity that is at risk of not getting it is the entity that's funding
Yes.
that. So ultimately, if they were to
Yes.
not get it, it could trickle down, but they're not looking at our mission vision then.
Yes.
We do have a lot of direct though as well, so
well,
like the transit and stuff is like.
Yeah, yes. But
But you guys may, depending on what you're brainstorming here, we may not even get into that territory. So,
it's kind of hard to imagine us doing that.
that's true, but it's one that if it is territory you get into, we can talk about it in part of where you distribute it on that impact effort matrix, right? Because if it's gonna be something that starts to have some of that, that might become something where, there's a higher effort put in, because we have to figure out how do we do that without risking some of these other areas. So there's different ways that we can look at it. But it is 7:30 for you guys. So I think what we'll do from here, I will take this back. I will put it all into a spreadsheet for you guys. It'll be in there verbatim. I'll include the dots in there. And then we'll get it sent back out to you guys so that you guys all have it to reference. And then you can start to think about, as we're heading into that next meeting, start to be thinking about in the back of your mind, what are some specific tasks we might do in relation to lack of POC / marginalized voices. And then that way you're ready to go, ready to start brainstorming. If you don't think about it between now and then, that's okay too. You can come up with stuff on the spot, we won't know. And then we'll kind of go from there and judge next steps kind of, based on how much we get through from, that next meeting. Okay. Awesome, take some
Thank you all.
candy. Don't take the fidgets, because I pay for those and.
We bring Pop Rocks to a meeting, right?
Opera.
Only the best for you guys.
Oh, sour popping candy, it is.
I didn't know it was.
Wow. Anybody wants it?
Thank you guys for letting me come to your meeting this time and also for next month.
Thank you.
I super appreciate it.
Are you doing this for all of them?
You guys are the first one, but it just works really well thinking about it. So it's the most important. So we have a lot of commissions now, but we don't really know what we're doing more way, so we're gonna do this, and so if it's, helping you guys